there is no better ROI from like building your business than documenting your journey. And it's free. Most businesses, they have to pay to get clients. They have to pay to get their name and their brand out there. Social media is free.
The one thing that a lot of people's content's missing is just conviction. Like when you're talking about something that you're passionate about, show that passion.
What's going on, STR Nation? Welcome back to another episode of the Short-Term Rental Secrets podcast. I'm your host, Mike Sjogren, here as always with my main man and brother from another mother, Mr. Emmanuel Pani. E, what's going on?
My brother, so good to see you. This is the time of the year where I am so grateful I don't work in a convenience store or an airport or an office that plays Christmas music 24/7 for 23 days out of the month, because I would go absolutely insane. And that's one of the things I'm grateful for today, because I had a meeting before this.
Just come to my house. You can get some of that. It's just going.
I had a meeting today. I stayed there for an hour and a half. It was literally the same 3 songs over and over. I'm like, I don't know how you guys come to work. And so I'm very grateful that's not my life, you know? But yeah. What about you?
Good, man.
You left us last week for your civic duty, which is very honorable of you.
Yeah, I got selected for jury duty and got put on a trial for over a week. It was interesting, man. It's the second time I've gotten picked, actually. The first time it was only like a day or a day and a half, but this one was like a legitimate trial. But it was interesting. You know, I'm very fortunate that my businesses are in a place that, you know, they keep chugging along and they really don't require my time, right? We've got great people in the businesses. So I had that freedom. A lot of the other folks are like stressing out about getting back to work and whatever. But it's funny. They played the videos at the beginning when you're getting selected, you know, of people coming out on the back end, like, you know, this was enjoyable and I do this again. And I feel like everybody in there is rolling their eyes, but it actually was pretty interesting, man. And it's a pretty cool part of the process. Fortunately, we were able to find both defendants not guilty. So the courts have been backed up since COVID. So these guys have been waiting on this trial since March of 2020.
Wow.
And if we convicted them, they would have been doing 5 to 10 years. And so this has been hanging over their head for the last almost 5 years. So it was a nice little Christmas gift to give them. I mean, the evidence was, they didn't have anything on these guys. Like they really didn't. So it was cool. I actually got to talk to one of them after we finished. I saw him in the parking lot and, you know, he was crying and everything else. Just like, man, like this has been just sitting here for 5 years and just like, well, glad we could give you a little Christmas present. Happy holidays. Probably never see you again. But yeah, it was a cool experience.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, it just makes you grateful, man. Like, again, I hold that. That's my primary frequency and vibration that I've been holding. And I've been very mindful to hold for this past year. And it just like, it makes all the difference. Right?
Yeah, it really does. Really does. And before we get into it, this is going to be a fun one. We've got I guess, somewhat special guest today. But I would encourage everybody to just get in the spirit of the holidays and just be generous. And if you're not, let's give a simple example. I went to Target the other day to just get a couple things. We needed some water and stuff for the office. So I just popped in. And the local police department was doing like a toy drive for kids, right? And so I went in and I was like, all right, I'll grab a toy or whatever. And then I was like, well, hell with that. Like, let me get a bunch. So I got a whole bunch of toys and like probably spent an hour of my time in there. Like, what would be some cool toys? And I got some for boys and girls and whatever. And I brought them out. And the officer looked at me and he goes, I'm like, here you go. And I handed him a bunch of bags. He's like, all of this? I'm like, yeah, all of it. And his reaction, I was like, man, like it just lit me up, dude, because these kids wouldn't be getting presents if people weren't generous to do this kind of stuff. And to me, that's the greatest gift of creating financial independence for yourself, is when you can do those things and not have to stress about it. And it just makes someone's day, dude. Like, give a better tip. Like, just do the little things and just make someoe's day. So,
yeah. And do it now, right? Like, I think it's always a propensity for you to like listen to this, because I know that's how I've been for long, like up until now. I was this way, right? It's like, yeah, I would love to do that when I can. When I can, I'll do that. And again, it's just, are you in the habit of giving, yes or no? So then it becomes a thing where you're like, okay, like you heard this example, right? Like you heard what Mike did. You're like, I cannot afford to buy 8 toys. That would have been super cool. Okay, buy 1, right? It's not that it's not the number, is the habit. And that goes with your team. Please take care of your team. The year has been like what it is. And like, you have to take care of your people. Like it's this time of the year of like, but even the mailman, like I put a card in the mailbox for the mailman and the Amazon people. Cause I know they come here, especially the Amazon guys. Bless you. You come a lot. Like I should take care of you. Like, let me get you a massage or something. Like, you've been hauling my 4 boxes of Fiji water every like 2 weeks up and down my thing. I'm like, you deserve, sir, please let me get you a massage. Like, but it's just like, get in the habit.
Well, without further ado, let's dive into this show. Today we have Mr. Daniel Mabley with us.
Daniel.
Daniel.
Am I in trouble?
So I've known Danny for 3 years, Danny, 3 or 4 years.
I think we just passed 3 years in August. Yeah.
Yeah. So 3 years. We met at a mastermind event. He was hired as a videographer to film the mastermind event that I was speaking at with some other folks. And from that point, we were working together on, a contract basis. He would fly out pretty much like once a quarter and we'd do a bunch of filming. And then this past year, he actually came and joined us full time, moved across the country, joined the STR Secrets team. He lives 2 blocks from my house now. And he's the guy behind the camera producing this podcast and all of our social media content and everything else. And so he's really good with content and social media. And he himself has grown a pretty huge following on Instagram and some other places. So we wanted to have him on to just break down what really is social media, especially from the perspective of hosts. And I know even for me, when I thought about like making content, it just felt very overwhelming. And it even still does. Like that's part of what Danny's job is he'll just follow me around and just like grab stuff because it still feels overwhelming to quote unquote make content for your business and your properties or whatever. But it doesn't need to be complicated, but you need to be doing it. It's one of those things that's not optional anymore. So Danny, why don't you just introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about your background and some social media stuff, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah. What's up? I'm Danny Mabley. And social media started for me when I was about 19. I was working a job, was about around this weight, and wanted to start a weight loss journey and just use it as like a documentation of like putting myself out there. Lost all the weight online, had a couple of videos go super viral on Facebook and like YouTube, and grew a following from that. And then was like, oh, I can monetize this. I can turn this into like what I do. And I did that for about 8 years, maintained the weight loss. And then through some life circumstances and changes in medication, I've put it back on. But I'm down 50 pounds on this new kind of re-journey now, since actually moving out to work closely with Mike, just the mindset stuff that we've worked on. I've been able to drop another 30, I think, since I've been here. So it's been awesome. I'm glad I'm out here. But what that 10 years or so in social media kind of taught me was just like little things at once that I eventually turned into something I could offer businesses. And so you were kind of one of the first, people that owned a business that was like doing social media, but a lot of people, especially at that time in the post 2020 era, were kind of just doing social media in like a second thought way, like just throwing something up. And I think that's great if you're doing nothing. Something's always better than nothing. But I think we're at a place now where social media is both the easiest and kind of the most trickiest it's ever been. And by what I mean by that is people just want authentic. People just want you to like share you. And that's hard for some people. So like it's easy because you can just pick up a camera, film almost whatever, throw it online, and you're going to add some value to yourself and your business, especially even your properties. If you're a host, like people just knowing you. But that's hard for people, like getting out of that mindset of like, oh, but I don't want everyone to see the authentic me. So I think it's in part like finding what portion of you or what story of you that you can put on social media that's easy, that's gonna add value, and that's gonna bring you value back.
So one of the things that we've talked about in the past, and I have my thoughts on this, but for the host listening to the show, is it better to create a personal brand like with your name and then show what you do, or have your company brand or your properties brands? Should you set up a page for every property that you have?
I think that just depends on what you want to post on social media, right? Like if you're going to be like a host and you're going to share stuff about your properties, I think you do kind of have to fall into that line of you have to be somewhat professional. So you're not just going to throw anything up on social media. You got to act kind of like a business first, but then a creator second on the forefront. And so if you're going to do that, I would do it in the way that you are simply just documenting your process of like putting your properties up, I'm showing some cool amenities, like just sharing what it is that makes your properties cool and valuable, right? You can do that on a personal sense of like having a page for per property. But I think that just, if you get to 20 properties, that's a lot to manage, right? So I think having one brand and then maybe one personal brand is ideal. But if you just want to start the most basic way, start with a personal brand for sure. Because you can just literally from the start, if you have to go to a property and solve a problem, just share that problem and why you, and how you solved it. Like people are going to not only get value from that in the space, but also like a guest maybe comes across your property or your page and they're like, oh, you own this property, especially for direct bookings is down the road. If they see you solve a problem, and they're like, oh, that's the kind of host I want to stay with. Like somebody's going to be diligent, who's going to answer our requests fast, who's going to not blame me for something. You put your authentic self out there. And if you're a good host, people are going to see that and they're going to want to book with you more.
The other thing that I think a lot of people are afraid to share when stuff goes sideways, right?
Mm-hmm.
Meaning like, it's not always sunshine and rainbows, and the social media landscape of like, everything's amazing on Instagram. Like, don't be afraid to share when you have issues in your business too, right? Like, that's the stuff that hooks people. Like, if you think of any good story or any good movie or any good show, there is a framework to that storytelling, because if everything was always good and hunky dory, there would be no excitement in the show. There would be no drama. There would be no anticipation, no anxiety, like none of that. Everybody's journey is going to have ups and downs. So don't be afraid to share that. And what I found is over different periods of time when I actually got vulnerable and shared some things, that's what drew a lot of people in of like, wow, this person's normal. They're human. They have ups and downs just like everybody else. And so a lot of times when I speak on stages, I'll share some vulnerable stuff that like really trip me up or different things that I had to go through. And that connects with people. It resonates with people. So don't be afraid to show, the good, bad, and the ugly of the business. Like that's what people want to see behind the scenes.
Yeah, 100%. I think the important thing to remember is with social media, no matter what audience you reach, the larger the audience, the more mixed opinions you're going to get. But the majority is always going to be positive. Like, unless you just like have done something wrong, the majority of people are going to be like, oh, this is cool. This person's like doing their best. It's only that small percentage that grows with the amount of people that it gets to that are going to be like, maybe 3 to 5%. And if you're caring about the 3 to 5%, then that's tough.
Well, there's a saying, if you can get half the country to hate you, you can be president. I mean, you've seen it on our pages as we've grown over the years. There's been certain posts that have gone viral for us that there's a lot of comments on there that are basically telling me to jump off a bridge, and it stings at first, right? We had Rashmi on the show a few months back. She had a post go viral. She almost stopped doing social media over it. She got like millions of views, ton of comments. Half of them were great and half of them were just absolute savage attacking her.
Yeah.
And that
depends on the platform.
Yeah. It will, there's that saying, like, you got to develop some thick skin. And for me, what I always go back to, the content that I post is genuinely trying to help people. And so if somebody misinterprets that, that's on them. But like my intention is always good. So just know that as you scale it, every once in a while, you're going to get some haters. Bigger you go, the more haters you're going to get. And that's normal. But at the beginning, the big thing is to get out of your own way and just start posting. Just got to start.
100%. I think I briefly said it before we started here, like the time of you having to have something to like sell or like offer on social media, I think is kind of over. It's just, there's value in just being present online, right? Like even if someone's like, oh, like you have, 1,000 followers, like what are you doing? Nothing. I just put effort in my content. Like there's value in that, in like the zeitgeist of like people, like if you continue to do that, you're only giving yourself more and more opportunity to have growth that you can eventually down the road monetize if you want to, right? I think people think that they have to start with some sort of end plan. The start plan should just be, I'm going to post X amount a week, or I'm going to post this, topic, whatever. Just have a goal to start being consistent with it. And anything that you want to then eventually turn that into can be a goal down the road, right? Just getting started, just kind of putting some effort into learning the fundamentals of what social media is and what you want to put into your posts, that's going to take you leaps and bounds above the majority of people that are making content, especially in this space, right? Especially in the space of like hosts, and everyone I think is for a while was so focused on like being informative, right? A lot of new coaches starting in the space, but even if you're just a host, even if you have nothing to offer, share your story. That's what it comes down to. That's like the time, you know how like in fashion, there's like timeless pieces of clothing, right? That'll last forever. Sharing your story is timeless on social media. It will always do well. It will always give back to you. It's forever.
I love that. So kind of hint into what we talked about earlier, right? Like I believe giving is a habit. By the same token, I believe making content is a habit. So getting in the habit of producing content. For me, and I'll share some of my journey in the past year as I'm also gearing up to like produce more content. Danny's going to help me with that as well. And it's just like, okay, I took a long time to make the decision. Part of it was what Danny just said, right? I'm like, I don't know on the personal side, do I have something that I want to sell? Yes or no? Do I want to put myself out there? Yes or no? So it's having that conversation. The other piece that changed for me, which was a problem that like I used to have, is I felt awkward and shy in using my phone. So I hated because I had judgment before towards people. And so I projected that on myself. So I hated taking pictures of food. I hate taking, like, if you like, take a picture of me and we're in the middle of something busy, I'll be like, stop. Like, I don't want to do this. Right. And so it's changing that into like making the habit of taking pictures and getting more in the habit of doing that to have the content, even though this necessarily, I don't share and post everything. It's just, for me, it's just the reps. So even if you are going to a property and you want to fix something, video yourself. You don't have to post it. Like there is not a thing that automatically takes whatever you video of yourself from your phone and posts it online. That can come over time. But I think, at least I'm saying this out loud to myself as well, step one of posting content is to actually take content. And as you get comfortable doing that, is in getting the habit of you got to start filming. And so off of that kind of tangent I went on, my question to you was, what are some habits that people can implement in their life that helps them make, post, and produce content?
I think the first one is Gary Vee coined this a while back, but it's like a power hour, but you can even do power 30 minutes. Or just take 30 minutes of your day to either brainstorm or film some piece of content. And the start, it can even be 15 minutes if you're just crunched for time. But like dedicate 15 to 30 minutes, and then it'll grow over time. The more you enjoy it or the more you get, reaction to it, to just focus on, okay, what am I creating? What am I putting out? Because if you just take that, you're either going to create something or you're going to create ideas that you can actually execute on later. So if you do that throughout the week, you're going to create and make it easy for you to put out stuff. And the habit, I would say, like you said, the easiest thing to start with is just your phone. Like we're in a time where it doesn't all have to be hyper produced. You don't have to have a 4K camera. You don't even have to have a camera. Your phone at this point in time, like they're good enough. Even like a iPhone 13 is still good enough. Just film yourself and film. And if you don't want to film yourself, a lot of people have, like, I don't want to be seen. Text and voice do great on social media now. So if you have your phone in front of you and you're pointing and instructing or telling a story, make sure you have some text on screen. Make sure you have some B-roll of the things you're talking about. And what B-roll is like just film, say you're talking about blinds, you just put on the window. Film the blinds separately, just like a close-up of the blinds. And you can use basic editing software like CapCut, free, download on your phone, and you just drop, drag, put it on. Super simple. So those are probably the easiest ways to get started. But one thing that kind of popped in my mind while you were talking as far as value goes with social media, like people will tell you and give you ideas on what you should do or what they want from you. So like the more you do social media, you're going to, especially with like, if you're a host and you're showing the design of your new property, all of a sudden you'll get one comment where they'll be like, oh, you should do this. And it could be like the smartest idea you never thought of, right? Then all of a sudden you have this free, possibly hot, like maybe a random designer came across your page and just wanted to give you some free info that you would have had to pay them $1,000 for. They're like, hey, you should do this, this, and this. And then you're like, oh, actually, when I think about that, that would be great. and you do it, and then all of a sudden makes your property better. Like, you're going to get little tidbits like that along the way. And that's the value I'm talking about, right? Like, people are going to either give you information that a lot of people give you crappy information too. It's social media, but there'll be tidbits in there where you get some good information, or someone just randomly DMs you and goes, hey, I saw you had this thing and I have a few of extra of these that I was trying to sell, or like, things will just come your way from social media. And if you don't know what it is that you want to put out, people will also request it from you. Like, hey, I like that video you did. Can you do another one on this part of the room, or like whatever, you know?
I want to break this down too, because there's evolutions to this process. So if you're just getting started posting content on social media for your portfolio, whether you're co-hosting, buying stuff, whatever, you want to build your brand, get your name out there to get bookings, to get more clients, all of that stuff. There's different phases. At the beginning, like we talked about, you have to just start posting. You just have to put yourself out there, start posting. Anytime you're at a property, take some footage. Like Danny said, even if you're not talking to the camera right away, just start filming the build out of the process, right? Grabbing different B-roll footage, as they call it. Then you can throw it in CapCut later and do a little voiceover and post it, right? The behind the scenes stuff does great. At a certain point, once you're getting consistent, you want to start to look at your data. So like, Danny and I meet every single day with Jeremiah, who's one of our editors, and I review all the content that's going to go out for the next day. Like, we meet every day. We have a huddle to look at all the content that we're putting out the next day. And then every week, Danny has a summary in a Google Sheet of all the content that we've put out and what has done well based on the number of views, the impressions, the shares, the comments, the likes, all of those things. And we can see the trends like he's talking about of, hey, we've noticed on my page, our hotel content is doing well right now. So we should do more hotel content. Just like he's telling you guys, look at your comments, look at the engagement on your posts, and then do more of that. But you're not going to have that if you're not posting yet, which is why we're saying you just got to start posting. Just get out of your comfort zone. Just start posting stuff. That was the biggest thing for me, where I delayed that and I delayed that and I delayed that. And then eventually I just started doing it. And then it just became a habit, and it gets easier and easier the more you do it. But I'm telling you, there is no better ROI from like building your business than documenting your journey. And it's free. Most businesses, they have to pay to get clients. They have to pay to get their name and their brand out there. Social media is free, and you get to control the narrative. What do you want to put out there? And at the beginning, people just want to see you. Like, who is this person? Right? Showing the behind the scenes of your build outs, showing, pre-check-in of a guest of what the property looks like. And maybe you have a little welcome gift and all these different things like, wow, like they've got a real attention to detail, or wow, this coffee bar is amazing, or wow, this amenity is amazing. Like, just document the journey and then start to dial in what types of content are doing well. Maybe it's reels, maybe it's these carousel things, maybe it's this thing, maybe it's this thing. And then you start to look at more of the data like a business or marketing professional. But at the beginning, you just got to start posting. You just got to do it.
100%. And I think what's important to remember too is the whole sharing your story thing. Like, when it comes down to it, if a roadblock for you mindset wise is, hundreds of other people are already doing this, or thousands of people already have this kind of property. What separates them from you is you. Like, how you do it, what place of the world you live in, what people you associate with, the kind of team that you build, the kind of design that you enjoy. Like, that's what people want to see, is they want to see someone else's perspective on the same thing they enjoy. Like, if we watch, comedy shows, all comedy shows follow the same kind of platform, like sitcoms, right? But each sitcom has its own characters, has its own set. Like, your life is the set and you are the character. You are the main character. So act like the main character and get out there.
So for those people that have that limiting belief or are afraid of, for example, what happened to Rashmi, or like what happened to Mike with the jump off the bridge comments, right? How do we help them? What do you tell them? Other than like develop a thick skin, like I get that, right? Like that will naturally happen, right? But if that was an issue that you had, or with all the clients that you've helped, when you get that, What are things that people do to like help themselves?
Yeah, I think, it has happened at least once with like every client. Like you're always going to get comments on social media. It just kind of is what it is. It comes with the territory. So that's first step. Is just know that like you are no different than anyone else on the platform. Everyone is getting DMs or comments that are who would say this? And the reality is like, there's that separation of like digital versus physical, right? Like people will say crazier stuff when they're not in front of you. So that's just like something you have to know going into it and be like, but it doesn't matter. Like start with that mindset. It exists. I don't care. The second thing is if you treat it like a business, in business, you're going to meet people that in your finding employees or networking where you're like, that person sucks. Like, they were rude or the way they said that I didn't like, and then what do? You just move on, like you wouldn't let that tear down the thoughts of you building up your business. Like one person saying something weird or saying, oh, you can't do it. Like, you've already worked past, most likely, if you're in the business world, if you've started a business, you've probably overcame a lot. So overcoming a few comments online is nothing. That's what the mindset I have. Like you're already prepared to deal with way worse situations than that. So it's like just being aware of it, know that you're not the only one, and know that the return, like Mike was saying, the return on investment is just going to so outweigh any amount of comments you're ever going to get.
Love that. The next question that I have for you that I would love to take us on a more actionable side, it's what are some resources that people can use if they are planning on starting to produce more content? So you already said one, right?
CapCut.
Yeah. CapCut's probably the easiest
on that front. And also like, how do people see how many views they're getting? Like what's a good software for that? Like, or a good app for that?
Yeah. So CapCut is probably the easiest editor out there. You do have to pay, I think, a monthly fee for like the pro parts of it, but you can get away with a lot on the free side. Metricool is what I use to automate and track data. So you can schedule posts on that. And then you can also see the data of a bit more accurately than what like Instagram or Facebook shows you. But just the first thing is like, know that once you've created something, just throw it on all platforms like that you reasonably can. Like if you're making a video for Instagram, it most likely will be able to post to TikTok and Facebook and YouTube. I think YouTube's the only one that has to be a minute or less. So if it's over a minute, then that's fine. Just don't put it on YouTube. But that's to start is those are the few that I recommend. But then also as far as like learning YouTube, man, like I learned everything I know basically on YouTube over the years of just like, okay, I'm on social media. What types of posts do well? How do I learn about what social media does well and what doesn't?
Mm-hmm.
Searching on YouTube. I have a few friends in the industry that constantly post content as well. You can give a few of them a follow.
Some good one of those.
And Rico and Carnardi, as far as like accounts, you're saying?
Yeah, like things that people can be and like go to this guy and he can help you like kind of like if you want to learn.
The two that I like the best are Rico. So Rico and Carnardi, he's a friend of mine who's social media, like he makes content on how to do better social media. And me and him share a very similar mindset of just like, he literally just posted yesterday. Like the one thing that a lot of people's content's missing is just conviction. Like when you're talking about something that you're passionate about, like show that passion. Like don't just be like, oh, I'm just talking about this property. Like you wouldn't talk about that property to your family friend or someone else. Like, oh yeah, I have this property. It's whatever. Like, no, you're like, oh dude, we just got this property. We put this in it. We added some of these amenities. Like it's super cool. That's how you want to talk to your audience. You want to talk to them. Yeah. With enthusiasm.
I got that book. I listened to it last night.
Yeah.
What book?
Acting Enthusiastically. I recommended it to a couple of our members in the boardroom. It's how I raised myself from failure to success in selling. It looks like this. If you guys look at it, if not, it's a yellow book. And he talks about that, right? But it's overall, his story is super interesting because for him, it's the enthusiasm in your life that determines your success. So even in the way that the guy used to play professional baseball, and his career got better when he started playing enthusiastically. And so start by acting enthusiastically in the things that you do. So just like what Danny said, people are not going to want to buy from somebody that doesn't move them, right? Because we make choices based on emotions. So make me feel something and I'll do it. But it says in here, when I force myself to act enthusiastic, I soon feel enthusiastic. Because the other thing with us, just like people, we listen. The biggest problem is most of the time you're listening to yourself. And the things that you're telling yourself are the same things you've been telling yourself all your life. And it's 80, what did Angie say, Mike? Is it 85 or 86% of thoughts are recurring thoughts? So you're not feeling enthusiastic because you will also be bored with you because it's the same unenthusiastic thoughts that you've always had. So change those and all of a sudden you'll be like, wow, I feel enthusiastic to that. So yeah, sorry. That was a rant. No worries.
It's not an episode of STR Secrets without an e-rant. It's just not.
Facts.
So a few other accounts. Brock Johnson is a good one on Instagram. And then for YouTube, Think Media. They cover the basics of like everything. Man.
He's like the OG.
Which he's not even like really on that channel anymore much because he's got a whole team. Speaking of business. Yeah, if you literally just look up like how to film content with your iPhone, like they have a full breakdown of like what you should get, what you should buy. It's like any question you have, like how do I do this? Just punch it into YouTube. You'll find a guide on it for free. And the more that you learn and practice, the better you'll get. And then you'll see that one video. It's just like going to the gym. Like you'll put the effort in. You're like, I'm just not seeing the return. I'm not seeing any changes in my body. Like this sucks. And all of a sudden that one video hits a couple thousand views. You're like, ooh, I found something. I got something. I can see a little definition. And then you just build off that and you continue to grow and you continue to put effort into those things that you can see that are actually giving you value back. And then that just compounds. And then you're just, all of a sudden you got, a couple thousand followers and people are interested in what you do. And then there's a reason, there's a purpose. You've gone past the start, which is just do. And now you're like, I have people that are relying on the information or the story that I put out. The people that want to book my property, they're waiting to see what changes I've made. They're waiting to see the new photos I just shot because we had to update because the season changed. Like that's the stuff that you want to put out there and utilize all the media that you can. So when it comes to like getting your property shot, like photos and videos, you're getting high quality, good quality content of your property already. Repurpose that. Tell a story of that day or why you did certain things to your property. I see a lot of now people kind of implementing personal, and there's mixed reviews on this, but I'm like having people in their Airbnb photos or somebody, I saw one that wore like a T-Rex costume. And then in each photo, they're like in a T-Rex costume, like posed in the property because it's meant to be like a more but a more group gathering property than others. So like, what is your property about? Who are you serving? Make sure that person, that avatar that you're serving, that they feel like, oh, I could see my family there, or I could see my group of friends there in the content you're putting out about your property.
I think telling real quick, E, just before I lose my train of thought, I don't know if you saw the video that Shane O'Connor on one of his new properties up in Sunday River. Kristen designed it. It looks amazing. But he did this video to tell like the story of the property. And it was so good, dude. I was tearing up. So he lost his father a couple of years ago while we were at WealthCon, actually. I'll never forget it. And his dad loved being in the mountains and all this stuff. And so him, his brother, and his mom, they bought a couple plots of land and they built these cabins that they're finishing up right now. And he did this amazing like welcome video telling the story of the property. And I was like, dude, this is what moves people. Like if I want to go stay somewhere and create family memories, like that was what the story of the property was all about. I'm like, it was, and I know he didn't do it for this reason, but I was like, this is what moves people, like the story of a property. And you may not have that for every property, but like, think of it like what gets you excited about this property? Why this place? Why should they come here? What does it mean to you? The reason that Airbnb took off compared to hotels and other just accommodations is there was this people connecting with people, right? There was this connectedness on the platform. And as you continue to grow and scale your business, you don't have to lose that, right? And I think that's why some of the bigger players like Vacasa and some of these have trended down because it's too corporate and there's not that story and that hospitality touch in there. So if you're launching a property, like tell the story of the property. Like what is the vision? Like paint the picture for people. Like what are you going to get when you come here? Why are you here? What's your experience going to be?
Airbnb does that amazingly. I love some of their commercials like that they do with the old people going on their like vacation, staycation, and everything else. I love that. This question is going to sound silly now after that super meaningful piece, but it was tied to the earlier conversation. It sounds silly not to mention AI or anything that people can use AI-wise with everything that is going on. We were talking yesterday, and we had some people do seasonal pictures using AI. So updating listings with seasonal pictures without having to like do anything, just using AI or sending it to somebody on Fiverr. Anything like that that you can think of that listeners can get or use that would help them in terms of producing content?
Yeah, it's still in the phase where it can be used to spark ideas, but not to fill the purpose of you being the creator, right? So there are some certain like accounts that are like full AI, and people just know, and it's obvious, right? And yeah, you're going to fool some people, and some people are going to be into that, but the reality is still people very much like the story, the authenticity, who you are. That's what separates you. So using that, to get yourself in the starting point, I think is great. Like punch in like, hey, this is my story of why I started this company. You're a marketing expert. How do I take this and implement it into my content? I'm going to be going to a property that has this many bedrooms, that has this kind of design. What kind of content? Give me 10 pieces with a hook for short form video. And it'll spit out some decent starting ideas. And you take it from there and go, okay, what do I do now? And shoot some of those. And then if you're like, oh, I like that, but I want to tweak it a little bit, and tweak it a little bit. That's a great starting point. Like when I do feel stuck, that's what I use AI for. Is like, I can't think of something to start here. I'll punch out a bunch of ideas and then take the best one and then like expand on it. And you can do that with a lot of different stuff, but with content, that's a great way to use AI for sure. But it's all in the prompt that you give it. So like tell it like, hey, you're a social media marketing expert. This is my audience, or this is the audience I want to create. This is my story. Help me create 10 pieces of content around this property. Help me create 10 pieces of content that make people want to stay at my property. And it'll give you some decent ideas.
Played around a little bit with like not on the video side, but on the photo side. Like it's not quite there yet. If I try and get it to like photo impose people in there to create like a lifestyle photo from some of our older images, it's getting there, but like it'll still like, especially with hands, it'll mess up hands. It'll be like 6 fingers or 4 fingers. Like it can't
what
like,
in the
do it all
world?
the way. But we did just do some seasonal photo changes for one of our cabins in the mountain. And I think he ended up hiring somebody on Fiverr, but it came out amazing. Like they took a beautiful drone photo that I took and they just made it look like it was winter. So they added snow and stuff and it came out awesome. So like if you can't physically get a photographer out there for whatever reason and you want to update for seasons, you can definitely do that for short money, $5 to $10 on Fiverr. They can change a couple photos for you so that it gives you a seasonal look. So Danny, before we get into the last question, where can folks connect with you and see all the magic that you're producing on social media?
My personal page is Danny Mabley, just my name. My kind of more business focused is STR content guy. And then, check out Mike, soon to check out E for some content going over there.
And the new STR Secrets page is actually probably a good example because we just launched that page. So you'll see the types of content that we're promoting just for that Instagram page. This is only a couple hundred followers. Like we just launched it. So that'd be a good one to check out.
Definitely.
All right, Danny, last question. I'm just going to adjust this.
My secret to short-term rentals?
Yeah. What is your secret to success with social media marketing?
The most consistent thing I've ever got as far as comments and like reassurance on like why people follow me is the authenticity. Is that I've never hidden really any part of myself from social media. And I know that not everyone's going to be cool with that, but like putting out as much of you as possible is what people respond to. They're like, I love how you always talk about this. I don't see a lot of people talking about that. I love how you always show this. I don't see a lot of people showing about that. Those are the DMs I get that are like, this is why I follow you. Like I'll literally have people respond to something and be like, this is why I follow you. Like this kind of post. And it's showing the reality of whatever niche you're in. And for me, it's, I'm on another weight loss journey. I'm down 50 pounds so far, keep it going. But like, if I have a bad day, I'll share it. I don't share as much as on social media now because I have a business to work on. But back in the day, like, and in my stories, like I'll just share what's going on in my life and be authentic. And that has always won.
Love it. The last thing that I'll throw out there too, we didn't really touch on it, but to that point is responding to people's comments, like engaging with your followers, I think goes a long way too. Like if you do a post that has a bunch of comments and you don't respond to any of them, to me, subconsciously, it's like, I don't care about these people, or that's how they feel.
I respond to every comment within the first half hour after a post. I know not everyone can do that, but it will give a lot of value to the algorithm, and it'll push you out more.
Love it. Well, Danny, thank you for being in front of the camera this time. Appreciate you.
No problem.
And for our listeners out there, hope you guys enjoyed this one. Have an amazing week. We'll talk to you soon.
Ciao, guys.
Peace.
Hey, STR Nation, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave us a review. And in the comments, let us know what topics you want us to cover on upcoming episodes, and we'll make sure to get that in the books for you. And if you really want to learn how to launch, automate, and scale your short-term rental business, if you want to go deeper, then check out our free masterclass at strsecrets.com.